All right, hi everyone. This is just picking up from our other live stream, internet cutout. So you may not have seen me do the background here. Basically, what I was doing is I was mixing a lot of different greens together. So I'll just go over my supplies. I have an 8x10. So these are my 8x10 canvases, and then I'm painting on this one. We have black and white, phthalo blue, bright yellow, and bright red, which is not orange at all. It's a primary red, basically, kind of pinkish if anything. And then you can have optional purple or violet. And you can also have an optional hooker's green or viridian green, literally any green. So if you have dark green, something like that. In terms of greens for this painting, I stuck with more bluish greens, sometimes turquoise. You don't have to do that. And I went from light to dark. So I'm using a large brush here. And what I've done at the top is I took a little bit of white, touch of yellow, and a small touch of blue. And you can just start at the top corner. You can see I'm just lightly tapping. I'm going to bring that back into my canvas. I just did a bunch of that. Then we just go darker. So you can, into the same pile. We don't really need to add more white unless it's really dark, right? So you just add more yellow, touch of blue, maybe a bit more blue if you like it slightly more minty green turquoise. And then you can use that, determine where you want to put that, lightly tap, go into your previous color. My trick for going into a previous color is after you use up a lot of the paint, you kind of just take white on the brush, and then it goes a little bit lighter. So it has the same color on it, but it goes lighter, and you can go in between your colors to soften it up a little bit more. Feel free to change up the colors too. As you can see, there's some different greens in here. They don't have to be the same. So even at the bottom, take more yellow, blue. If you take about 2 parts blue, 1 part yellow, you get more of that bluish green. If you add a touch of black at the bottom, this is like that hooker's green I was talking about. You can darken the bottom if you want it a bit darker. I think I'll just darken the bottom a little bit here. Just dab little flicks and stuff. Go up as high as you like to. Use up most of your paint at the bottom. Try not to do it at the top. And then go back to any other greens if you want to change it up a little bit. But I like to do lots of those out of focus circles you see in the background, and it gives it more of that different colored look overall. So I'm going to wash off my large brush. Okay, so I wash it off. Kind of done with that. All right, just getting a napkin here. And we got some hyper kids, keep us entertained. All right, so I have a napkin here, and you can just, dab your brush dry type of thing. But for the circles, whatever brush you think works for you. So honestly, you can use this brush, something like a round, what is this? It says it's a number 8. I don't really believe it. But yes, this one, you can use this one. And you can also use a smaller, just a detailed brush. This is about a number 2 detailed brush. My circles are all just different colors. I start with white. Let's start with white. You don't really need to dip in the water. You can sometimes, but even on top of your wet paint, see how it just picks up what's behind it? It just makes a lighter version of that. So I start with this and do as much as I can before I switch colors. You can grab more white if you want more actual white circles, or just a little bit, go over it a few times. Okay, so you can see how that's coming about. I'm just going to keep going. This is a lot of white, but you can see the more I go over it, maybe wipe some off, go a little bit bigger this time, the more it goes back to some sort of greenish tone, but very light. All right, so a little bit down here. Down here I kept it kind of dark, so not too much white circles down here. Don't forget, like, off page. You can overlap, that's okay. Washing it off, drying it again, because sometimes it gets really, really green. If your painting is dry, that's okay. Use very little paint. Maybe a touch of water, not too much paint at all, and it will pick up a bit of the background. And go next to another circle, just kind of overlap it a bit. Alright, now I'm going to change my color. So I did lots of this. If you like it just like that, leave it. I added a couple of some purple. You can see some purple at the top. Also a bit of brown, like orangey brown at the bottom. So if you're just not sure, you can probably do more towards the end, right? You can just put some around the end. You can also just do a couple light yellow ones. So yellow and a little bit of yellow and some white. You can also do stuff like this. There's some slightly yellowy ones. You can put some up here. I'll show you a couple of the orange ones at the bottom. So that is mixing yellow, touch of red. And I'm going to take a small touch of, very small touch of black, kind of goes brownish. I'm going to take a touch more red and yellow. Alright, wipe off some extra paint here. Let's try it out without too much paint. You can always add more. If you like it, just add more. And remember, just keep it random, so don't put them evenly spaced. Nothing like that. Alright, and at the end, maybe I'll add a couple more if I feel like it. So earthy tones at the bottom, and then Purple, again, you can add at the end. Might be one of those things you want to decide later. I'll put purple in as I'm painting some of my flowers purple, so that I'm doing purple at the same time. Just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so from here, pretty much you want this to dry. Paint your edges while you're waiting. But if it's slightly damp, it's not too bad, because I do start with most of just getting an idea of where I want things to be, which is the center of the flowers, like the top little very cone-like shape top of the flowers, and then getting a base coat of where my petals are going to be, and then you have to do a second coat, and you can add some highlights onto it. And then I shape my the leaves and the stems kind of around everything, wherever I want it to be. All right. So to get all of this, we don't just start with, we kind of start with one tone, and then you can go from there and change it up. So if you have a premixed brown you'd rather use, you can use that, or even premixed oranges. I'm going to use a similar brown orange that we just made at the bottom if you made it. So yellow, red, about equal parts. And then I'm going to make it darker later, so I'm just going to start with some sort of orange here. You can add a small touch of white. It can be dirty white, that's okay. I'm going to use something like that. I'm going to place, okay, I want my first ones. I'm going to leave a lot of space just like up here. I'm not going to go all the way up. But I'm going to start my first one, something like this. See, lightly tap, like you're making, I call it a jube, a very spiky, dabby, blobby jube. Okay, it's a bit more flattened at the bottom and rounder at the top. All right. So I still have space over here. Take some more and went a little bit higher. See over there? I have space I can envision my petals here. So I'm going to go a little bit further away. Another kind of jube. You can always make this bigger. It's hard to shrink, so be mindful. Okay. Definitely don't worry about don't worry about the saturation or the opacity right now, because we're going to do second coats. I got lost in my thought there. Okay, slightly turned. See how I just turned the shape so it's a bit more this way? You can do it more straight. You can change the angles sometimes if you want to be a bit more fun. Just giving you ideas instead of it all being straight. And then down here, so we have petals. I want my petals to be about this long. So just think about the length. Definitely longer than the whole top of it. So I want it to come down about here. So that means my next one down here. Just off to the side, not directly below it. Just another little one here. There. And I'm going to wash this off. We're going to let that dry. So while it's drying, this is when we start the base coat of our petals with the flowers. You can pick any color you want. You can do like more pink, right? So I went a bit more pinkish purple over here on this one. More violet purple, actual purple. Change it up to your liking. You can do kind of a mix of everything. So if you want to start with more of a pinkish magenta color, now if you have that, awesome. Basically this. I'm just going to show you. If I have any more. Okay. But overall, red, white, smallest touch of blue. It's like one of those very reddish, not quite purple, but it's got like that tiniest little dot of purple in there. And this is the color, so if I just put that in, it's basically the same. It's not purple, it just has a tiniest little dot of blue, and it gives it that slightly different pink color, more magenta. Okay, so once you have that color, I'm going to start off lighter. I'm going to take a little scoop of white, add it in, so it's much lighter. Let's start over here. So what I've done, let's take a small touch of water. What I've done is I went pretty much right up to it, and it's all just, imagine it's just flowing and curving down for the most part. Curving down, a little bit of a rounded tip at the bottom. Let's go close to it and then bring it out again. Just a little bit of a gap. It's got a bit of a bounce, a little bob, so over here, pretty close. It's coming out, but a little bit shorter now because it's wrapping, since it's going around. We're making it look like a sphere. If you were to circle around this whole thing, it almost makes, you know, the perfect shape of a circle in a way, right? So you want to go a little bit shorter on the sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick it out. See a little bit over here. Okay. Let's go a bit closer just for now. And then we also have to keep in mind the thickness of the petals. We don't want them so thin that they look dead, right? And shriveled. So, well, maybe sometimes they have little gaps, right? So you can, not all petals are exactly the same. Maybe you have a short one because it just happens to be that way. And maybe this one will be my magenta and the other one will be purple. Or I can just change it. Okay, wrapped. This one has less white in it, but I'm just going to roll with that. That's fine. So once you have a bunch of petals, go back, take a step back, look at it. Go pretty, like almost touching this thing up here. Go back and then decide if you need to make a little adjustment. Like all you have to do is make some things a bit thicker, right? We're going to add some highlights and shadows in here. But as long as when you're looking at the shape, it kind of has like a little bounce, like one of those bouncy beach balls, then just leave it. You can also go a little bit closer, so you can make things a bit more touching, right? But that's it for now. All right, now let's go to our more purple one. Don't even have to really wash off the brush that well. Just add, if you have purple, just go straight to it, or blue and red to make your favorite purple. I would say 2 parts blue, or sorry, 2 parts red, 1 part blue. And once you have your purple, add a bit of white. Start off lighter. All right, then let's just keep going. Might be easier to just start with some of the middle ones. Determine the size at first. Starting they're pretty close together overall at the top, especially. And they go a little bit shorter, especially on the sides. Just going a bit thicker. Oh, I definitely went bigger here. I'm going to go a little bit thicker right here. Okay. And then any color you want to do at the bottom. Okay, washing this off. While that's sitting for a minute, now is a good time to put the stems in, some of the, just mostly the stems, you can put the leaves after. Put some of that in. Put in any out of focus flowers and come back and we're going to add lots of detail to this. So the out of focus flowers, very little paint on the brush, whatever, if you want to use purple or pink and or. So wiping off a lot of paint. And see, just going to do a very soft circular shape. Take a bit of my orange, do a couple dabs at the top. If you run into issues where it's like you put too much paint, right? Just go back to a bit of green, wipe off some of the paint, and just go over with a bit of green. Okay, so let's do it again. Let's do more purple this time. Well, actually, I did pretty dark purple over there. Let's do more of a pink. Okay, so wipe off a lot of the paint. And you can wipe off more. So it's hardly coming off whatsoever. Then go orange. Wipe it off. You can even add a little touch of brown just at the top, so it's a bit obvious. Okay. This is an angled brush, but you can use the same round because it has a pointy tip, or a detailed brush, right? You can switch to a more fine tip. But if you want to use an angled brush, you can get like a perfectly straight line if you want something like that. I didn't really do a perfectly straight line, but let's just do it a little. I'm going to just show you anyways. I'm going to take a dark green, so that's yellow, or a hooker's green. You pick that hooker's green. But yellow, black, whoops, that was a lot of black. A little bit of black, a bit of blue. For the most part, the ratios are 2 parts yellow, 1 part blue, and like half of black. Maybe if you want to go darker, you want it really dark, you can do a bit more. Okay, so it's starting, envisioning about the middle. Okay, so I'm just having it come down. Making it a bit thicker. There we go. Over here, about the middle. It's going to come out wherever it comes out. This one you can see. I'm doing it now because if I go on top of stuff, I'm just going to go over it anyways. And if you want to add in practice, or just add in some bits of grass too. You can also add in some leaves. I'm going to put a stem from the one behind it. If you're doing more of a leafy look, just kind of pull it up. Make more of like a pea pod sort of look. Pointy on the end, thins out at the beginning where it comes from the stem. A little bit wider in the middle. That's one way to do it. You can even just do leaves, not even attached to some of the stems here, or just even from the grass, you can just fold over a leaf. Pointy on the end. a little bit more body in the middle and keep it thinner on the end again. Maybe like another leaf here. Maybe another one here. Or just bits of grass. Help deepen up the bottom. Okay, I'm going to leave that for now. It's got a lot going on at the bottom, which is kind of what I was going for. And I'm just going to wash this off. Go back to my flowers. I made them a lot bigger, trying to show you shape, but then I went really big, so I'm just going to keep it big. Okay, so let's say the magenta one, for example. Just go back to your color. Don't add white this time. So what I like to do here is I just like to darken the top parts and a little bit at the bottom. And it's hard to tell because some of them are actually just all around dark. However, you can see from this color when it was supposed to be lighter. I'm going to take white, touch of my magenta, go much lighter. I'm just going to highlight the middles. See, I'm just doing one streak, and that's all I need to do at the moment. Middles of the petals, so the tops, the very tops and the bottoms are a bit darker. No worries if you went a little crazy, right? You just go over some of the bottoms again and darken it up. It's not like you have to stick with just magenta. You can add a bit of purple at the bottom sometimes if you want a mix of color, or even at the top. So I just added a little bit of purple up there. Makes it kind of fun. There we go. So after that, we're going to build onto it. Let's go back to the center part here. We're adding, so you can even take, even if it's just like a green, like a super dark green with black, just take that. But I'm taking a touch of that, and I'm taking a scoop of red and yellow, about equal parts. Getting this dark brown. Take one more touch of black. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. Light little dots and touches around, just a bit sparse and spaced out, just a little bit. Taking up a little bit more space than we initially had. You can even do little flicks coming out. A little spiky, but more concentrated on this bottom right corner, and then a little bit more spaced out towards the opposite side. Okay. So let's do it again. Over here. All the way down. And down here. You see, most of it's kind of filled in at the moment. And I'm washing it off. I'm going to add the highlight later because I want it to dry a bit. And I also want to take advantage of the opportunity to put in some black streaks. You can take a touch of water and you can use your detail brush or this pointy middle brush, right? Whatever brush works. And I personally like to just add like little flicks coming from that, just black. You can even just, so the black is optional, especially around here, but you can even just put it around some of your petals at the beginning if you want to deepen up some of those creases where it's coming out from. You have to be very careful. But I like to add little dots of black right at the very bottom, make it more obvious and darker, like a true shadow, just at the bottoms of where the petals and that center flower meet, all that texture. Like it's all clumped and creased in there. Just doing over here. Probably should have done some of the highlights and the shadows first, but I'm just going to do it anyways just to show you. And then down here. So I'm going to go and add some highlights and shadows in there, but let's just focus on this flower so you can see how it's going to start developing. It's just a rinse and repeat type of thing. Depending on the color, you just go back, say for purple, you just do all the same things we did here, but with more purple colors, or if you want to add pink, you can still add pink. Okay, so I'm going to go to straight purple, so that's 2 parts red, 1 part blue. You can even add the tiniest touch of black if you want it deeper in color, but I caution you with that. Just make sure it still looks like the color that it is, like purple, for example. I am going to start outlining some of the petals, like just wrapping it around the bottom. Not really going on the top side of it, just like more of the bottom part of it, if that makes sense. So not necessarily right over here, but just sweep it around, up on that. So it's, for the most part, for this flower, I've been doing it more on the left side for these petals right here. And then I will do it on the right side for the opposite direction. So these petals right over here. I think it gives it a bit more of a boost. Okay. And then, you know, touch-ups from here, but before I go back to this part, you can add another, just a little bit of white on the brush, and just a little bit of a pop. A little pop. A little extra highlight. If you like. It's kind of a bit more shiny, it's hitting more of the light. And then for this stuff, now I'm going to go to my orange. So brown, yellow, bit of white. You can do little flicks if you like the little spiky things. You can also, I'm starting on the opposite side, lightly dabbing into the middle. So getting a little bit into that dark brown. Washing it off, doing it with just white now. I can do little taps or little short little lines. Kind of picks up some of the orange and makes a lighter orange. So at the end, once you do the rest of your flowers, you can always go back and do a little small little touch-ups. If you put too much light orange, just go back with some brown, right? All right, now I'm just going to do basically all of this again, but with my other flowers and deciding what colors I really want to do. So I'm going to do more purple over here for that purple flower. So again, purple. You can always add a small touch of black if it's not dark enough. Mostly outline right here on this side, the bottoms. Get it darker towards the crease where it's meeting the center of the flower. And it's a little bit darker at the bottoms, but it's already kind of dark because I'm going to add a highlight, so you can either darken the bottoms and leave the middles, or you can add a highlight of just more white with your purple. I'm going to take white, add a touch of purple to it, and just go into the middles and lighten it up. Always take that step back, see how it's looking. Up close, not quite the same. Maybe I'll add some of the purple down here. I'll do a mix. Could be a bit of pink and purple. Do a highlight. Let's do more white. then that outline, touch of black added to either red or purple, and just doing outlines. Also helps with the shape. It just gives it more of a sharper look when you add a touch of black. You can see more definition, maybe a bit more of the creases. You can take just pure white, a little lift, and then the centers. So I take orange with a bit of white, very light little touches when you go into the brown, still showing a lot of that color. And then just pure white right on the very edges, or like the tops, very top lefts. Then I'll just put in a touch more brown so that it doesn't stay too bright. Red, yellow, bit of black. Soften some of these. So I have a bit of a deeper orange if you're looking for an in-between color. You're like it's a little too light and then it's too dark. Just no white with your orange and just go over between the brown and where it gets to a lighter color. You have some sort of middle ground. You have a medium in between color. Plus I think it pops out the color a little bit more overall, of the center being a bit more orangey. Now, if you're feeling a little bit fancy and you want to do something kind of like what I've done, I did take, remember that yellow, blue, touch of black, like a viridian or the cruise green. Added a little bit of that green towards the brownish section. Just a couple dabs. Okay. All right. once you're done playing around with that, basically what you want to do is do a bit of highlights on the stems and the leaves, or add some circles. You can add more circles if you think it's missing a couple of purple out of focus circles in the background. Maybe some of that orangey brown stuff in the background, out of focus flowers in the background if you want to add that. But on my dark green, I'm adding highlights. I'm taking white and yellow and a tiny touch of blue, so it's mostly just a yellowy green. I would say more of like a lime yellowy green. Overall, this is what I have. Tiny touch. See how it's mostly yellow, mostly white too. So you can just give a bit of a highlight, you know, maybe pick the left side, pick a side, go next to your previous green. You can make it look thinner overall. I like to go in the top parts of my leaves to give it a little bit of a different color, more of a highlight. Leaf here. Sometimes leaves are not so perfect. They're kind of wiggly, smushy. If you don't want it as just as bright, just go back to a slightly darker green. Just add a bit more yellow and blue to it. I'm not picky with the greens. I would say just have fun with the greens. Don't focus on a certain green. Let the greens just speak for themselves. You can have different greens. It just makes it more fun. Okay, and I can always go back and take no more white, blue, yellow, and black, darken it up, and just put in more of that, especially at the bottom. Kind of flick them upwards, almost grassy. And then you can just kind of leave it alone. I'll add in a couple of those purple circles. So it's purple with a bit of white. I'm wiping off a lot of the paint here, by the way. Be super careful. See, that's really dark. I'm gonna add a touch more white. Wipe it off. Maybe a little one. Maybe a bigger one. A bit more white this time. I think the trick is hardly any paint when you're doing purple, so it has like that small little essence of it, and that's all you really need. And that's it. So after that, you can sign your painting. Show it off on our Facebook page, Artist Palette Derm on Facebook. We love seeing different interpretations, different styles. So as you can see, I changed up the placement of colors. This one's, I went a bit bigger overall too. But nothing's exactly the same. And that's what makes it kind of awesome. You can experiment with your preference and your favorite colors and different things you want to do. Thanks for joining. And hopefully it wasn't too hard, right? Hopefully I broke it down pretty well, and it looks like it has a lot of texture, depth to it without even having to try that hard. Thanks, guys. Bye.